Fidel Castro showed up at the Hotel International, I thought he was there to make a speech or to address the American students. And he arrived with his 3 cars with his bodyguards, and he came into the hotel and asked if he could play ping pong with anybody. And he went to the back of the hotel and he proceeded to play ping pong with one of the students. I expected that this would be a sign of humility. He plays ping pong with the students. However, after about the 3rd or 4th game, I began to think this guy wants to play ping pong. He was keeping score, and he was playing for 21, which takes a long time. And he played ping pong for almost 3 hours. And at the end of this, a lot of students wanted to ask him questions about Cuba, and he said that he had to get back to the affairs of state after spending almost 3 hours playing ping pong.
William Worthy isn't worthy to enter our door. Went down to Cuba, he's not American anymore. But somehow it is strange to hear the State Department say, you are living in the free world you must stay.
After the Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved, and it was clear that there would be no invasion of Cuba, a rumor started to circulate among anti-Castro Cubans that Kennedy had made a secret deal with Khrushchev. According to the rumor, Khrushchev removed the missiles in exchange for Kennedy's agreement to end his hostilities with Cuba.
The anti-Castro Cubans here couldn't believe it. I mean, to them this was the utmost in traitorous behavior. Some anti-Castro Cubans even thought he was communist, thought he was a mole at the highest level, as it were. I mean, this is the kind of thinking that was going on at the time. And a tremendous hatred of Kennedy developed among the anti-Castro Cubans, and also among the CIA agents who, in fact, had become so associated with the anti-Castro Cubans and training them, and even going on raids with them, actually. Their sense of betrayal was as strong as that which the anti-Castro Cubans felt.
The anti-Castro Cubans were not getting the sympathy or support they once did, and they took out their frustrations at peace demonstrations, which, ironically, often turned violent. One of the most prominent peace groups was a pro-Cuba organization called Fair Play for Cuba. The New Orleans chapter of Fair Play for Cuba was manned by an ex-Marine named Lee Harvey Oswald. He was the only member of the chapter, and he was filmed passing out pro-Cuba literature on the streets. This activity led to a conflict with anti-Castro Cubans and to a series of television interviews in New Orleans.
You're a Marxist?
Well, I have studied Marxist philosophy, yes, sir, and also other philosophers.
But are you a Marxist? I think you did admit on an earlier radio interview that you consider yourself a Marxist.
Oh, I would very definitely say that I am a Marxist. That is correct. But that does not mean, however, that I'm a communist.
What is the difference between the two?
Well, there's a great deal of difference. Several American parties in several countries are based on Marxism, such as Ghana. Certain countries have characteristics of a socialist system, such as Great Britain with its socialized medicine. These, then, are the differences between an outright communist country and countries which adhere to leftist or Marxist principles.
In your work with the Fair Play for Cuba Committee, what are you advocating?
We advocate restoration of diplomatic, trade, and tourist relations with Cuba.
In the fall of 1963, while Kennedy was bathing in the adoration of the American public, he was also engaged in a series of vicious confrontations. On September 7th of 1963, Fidel Castro was reported to have threatened Kennedy's life, saying, quote, "United States leaders should think that if they are aiding terrorist plans to eliminate Cuban leaders, they themselves will not be safe," end quote. On October 3rd of 1963, the New York Times reported that the CIA was, quote, "a malignancy that the White House could not control." It went on to warn that If the United States ever experiences an attempt at a coup to overthrow the government, it will come from the CIA. The agency represents a tremendous power with total unaccountability to anyone." End quote. The Secret Service was becoming very concerned about threats to the life of President Kennedy, especially those involving anti-Castro Cubans and right-wing extremists. In October of 1963, Kennedy canceled a trip to Chicago at the last minute when it was learned that a group of 4 anti-Castro Cubans had been found with high-powered rifles. On November 18th of 1963, Kennedy canceled a motorcade in Miami after the Secret Service recorded a death threat posed by a wealthy right-wing extremist named Joseph Miltier. On November 22nd of 1963, John F. Kennedy went to Dallas.